This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 154 of the Healthy Critters Radio, brought to you by Biostar US. Find them online at biostarus.com.
On today's show, we speak with rangeland and forest management expert Matt Deschell. And in critter nutrition, we focus on the GI tract. Listen in. Hi, I'm Tigger.
I'm Patty.
And today we have Coach Amber, who is our producer. So we're here at the bi-monthly Healthy Critters Circus of Insanity.
Yeah, and we're
because Patty and I are in Wellington in the last gasps of the season.
Yeah.
And if you've never spent the winter in Wellington, Florida, we'll try to give you a brief view from the palms.
I'm just going to start off by this. I'm just grateful I'm upright and not wearing a diaper. Having said that, it is a very incredibly wonderful experience. Just gets tiring. Then, you just yearn for home. The days are long and they start early.
They start early. They go long, and every day is Groundhog Day.
Yeah. But I will tell you, it's been a lot of fun for me because I've had a lot of new people that come this year, and I love seeing people like what they like to experience. Like that has been refreshing. I just had a group switch out from 2 weeks ago, a new group come in, and it's so much fun to see them kind of their eyes real big, and they just went to, they've been to Global a couple times. They went to Coda last week. They loved that. It's just the whole thing is fascinating, seeing all the new stuff. But it gets tiring, doesn't it, Tig? Well, you've been hugely.
Well, CODA, which everybody is the Challenge of the Americas, it's the big fundraising effort by the dressage community. It's once a year. It's in Wellington, and we raise money for breast cancer research. This was the biggest attendance ever in the history of the Challenge of the Americas. And the centerpiece is Grand Prix quadrilles of 6 horses each. We had 5 teams competing this year. And, when you think about it, that's 30 Grand Prix horses just to make 5 quadrilles. And in most places in the country, you're lucky to have 3 Grand Prix horses. Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing to be in this one place in all of the U.S. where you have 30 Grand Prix horses, not counting the ones that compete in the 2-star and the 3-star and the 4-star events. So the standard is high, and it's so cool when the community, meaning the dressage community, all turns out together for one really important cause, because we've all been affected one way or the other by a sister or a mother or a friend or a wife or a daughter that has battled breast cancer.
So it's an amazing cause.
It's an amazing cause. And, having JJ Tate on my team was especially inspiring to me.
Of course it was, yeah. Because
her story is so raw and so honest. And when she told the team for our first meeting about her journey and how breast cancer research really saved her, because 5 years ago they didn't have as much knowledge about the particular kind of gene that she has. And it's all come from funding breast cancer research.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So, and I'm proud to say that Biostar won the quadrille competition.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot that goes into that, because you for how many weeks have been getting together and having these people practice? How many weeks?
Every Tuesday since the beginning of January.
I thought you were going to say since the beginning of time.
It feels like that.
Well, it's just selfless. People caring people going out there and doing that for a greater cause. So of course, we're incredibly proud of you two. We're proud of all the people that showed up in the teams. But that's just one of the great benefits of being in Wellington.
Yeah.
But, you also, on top of doing that, have been running around doing a few other things.
Yeah, just a little. But then, you're on the trainer teacher side. And, every trainer teacher I know in Wellington right now is thinking about when they're going to get a vacation. Because, the show schedule's intense, and, people who come down here to get more lessons and learn by going to shows and just watching the warm up or moving up a level. It's a lot of stress, and you as coaches and trainers and teachers want your students to get the most out of the experience and their horses to improve, and so Wellington is like this big giant pressure cooker.
Yeah.
In some ways. And now that we're basically at the end of season, there's a Nations Cup on the dressage side this coming weekend. Everybody's kind of feeling okay, it's time. It's time to pack up and go home.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's interesting about Wellington is that there are some conservation and watershed areas. I've been to one of them that's south, more towards Del Rey, and I have spent a lot of time there with the seabirds. There's a great big alligator there, and they explain in this huge graph that's permanently displayed about how the wetlands work. This kind of wetland. And we have an expert on range and forestry coming up that if you're interested in the planet welfare and ecology, you're going to love Matt. So let's get him on.
Great. Let's get started. So we are with a good friend of mine, Matt Deschell. He was a former resource conservationist, and I had sat down and talked to him about the eagles in a critters episode before this, and we had just had an interesting discussion about the management of habitat and how the management of species and how that all works. And we had been basically just a great conversation. So welcome to the show, Matt. We're going to just sort of pick your brain about how this all works. But we had initially talked about just how changes in irrigation can affect a species and how you manage that. So can we kind of like pick up with that conversation we had a couple weeks ago and just kind of talk about that and how that affects the species?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. A good example of being able to go in and manage habitat really focuses back on not being able to manage on an individual species level. And that's where our conversation about the eagles started. I know eagles, especially brood pairs, mating pairs in Florida are critical to the survival and habitat, but you cannot just manage for an individual species because they're all linked. And the irrigation that you're talking about, I've been able to work with agriculture and wildlife really all over the country. One of the experiences I had was back in 2001. There was an irrigation shortage, a water shortage in the Klamath Basin. which led to irrigation shutoff. The outcome of that really is with the irrigation not being able to work on the potatoes and the crops and like hay in that area, was that there wasn't really any food for the ducks. And so the ducks got up and left, and they actually stopped that area. It was a resting area for the Pacific Flyway. And so the ducks actually moved. They changed their travel pattern to more resting in the Sacramento Valley. The issue around it wasn't just the ducks, but things like big eagles, bald eagles, the golden eagles, which are protected under the Bald and Golden Eagle Act, got up and moved with them because it's a huge food source. So by adjusting the water for, in this case, it was the benefit of fish, really negative impacted the ducks, which then it impacted the travel patterns and the hunting patterns of the eagles. So managing for an individual species really doesn't happen. It's always got impacts on everything else around it, whether it be, birds, large mammals, ungulates, or even people.
It's amazing how that all affects one another. We were talking about we're at this beautiful farm that's called Eagle Tree, hence the whole interest in the eagles. And I do have one question that I didn't ask you before. Are eagles, do they mate for life?
Yeah, you will get a mating pair, and they do tend to stay together. Unfortunately, things happen. Whether it be natural or unnatural, but they do tend to stick together for life. Yes. They have the same nesting tree. They come back every year, very habitual, and that's why when you talk about the Eagle Tree Farm, that nest that was on that place, was going to be there as long as something catastrophic didn't happen. Absolutely. So then it had to change its pattern.
Right. Okay. Well, and so we were also talking about how all these farms up in this particular area, how they've built up and how it's moving them out and out. And then you talked a little bit about the fishbowl effect, and it just blew me away because you were talking about how, a fishbowl effect, how they're having a smorgasbord of what they can prey on, but then how it even affects the grasses and other types of wildlife and animal life. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the people influence comes in. Wildlife tend to travel, both, from nesting, from breeding, from hunting, whatever it is they may be doing. They have different locations that they do that in. They travel from place to place. When these developments come in, it really takes away some of the habitat that they do use. And so, when you start putting houses on the dry spots in South Florida, that would be typically where you'd find, your rabbits, your mice, your small mammals that the eagles, are going to, among other things, are going to be preying on. And as those houses move on, those prey get pushed into smaller and smaller areas, which makes the concentration of things like raptors, the eagles, really focused down. But then the population of that prey, and the food that they feed on goes away because you're taking, the opportunity for nesting for small rodents, for the feed that they use, and you're really focusing it down to smaller areas, which changes those patterns. Now, a good example in that area that you've got right now, I had the opportunity to travel out and hike around Green Cay, where they've recreated some of the different types of habitat around the wetland area, both for the sake of water quality in the area, as well as an educational demonstration site. So you've got deep water, you've got, shallow water, you've got grasslands, all in a small area. And so one of the things, when I walk through it, where you notice is that the raptors don't have to travel anywhere. They get to sit in one tree and be able to see all the different kinds of prey in one place. Cool opportunity to see that in action, where typically they would have gone out onto where the different farms would be, and now it's really concentrated. So those prey populations are lower, which leads to predator populations being lower, and they really focus on the kind of this wave pattern of reproduction versus hunting between the predator prey relationship. So it shortens it up, and it really focuses it into a small area. A fishbowl where you can watch those things, but also focuses it down so those animals aren't traveling like they used to, and the populations are smaller.
Well, and I'm sure that's when you start to see all the decreases and increases in different species, which is kind of amazing to me. Where was it that you said that you saw this? What was it called?
It's Green K. There's an educational park right there outside of well, it's not but 15, 20 minutes away from Eagle Tree Farm. There's it's just a local park that was built from a restoration of wetland habitat educational standpoint. It's a neat local place where you can go walk the trails and see the ducks and the fish and the raptors all kind of pushed into one small area.
That's pretty amazing. Well, it is so incredibly interesting how one thing affects the other, and how this whole thing came about, just being interested in hearing about all this, but just how one species affects another species, and how we have to do our part in trying to make sure that we don't keep ruining it all for them. And
can I just say that it trickles down to farming? You know, when you think about what you're going to put on grassland.
It really does. And that's where so much of my background, you know, my educational and work background is from an agricultural standpoint. I've worked big cattle operations, row crops, forestry, gone to school for all of that, but also in the midst of all that, the wildlife. And one of the things that most folks don't realize is sustainability of our agriculture and forest ecosystems really works hand in hand with the wildlife. I had the opportunity to work on a big 11-state sage-grouse initiative a few years ago, where the whole mantra of the initiative, millions of dollars going into restoration of rangeland, but it was the cows and the sage grouse working together. And when you look at the management of our natural resources, both from a cropping standpoint and from a livestock standpoint, when managed properly, they're beneficial to both, because the wildlife uses the land that the agriculture may not be able to, and vice versa. So you can actually manage those habitats very, very successfully with agriculture. You know, our country has gotten to the point where everything is fairly highly managed. And if we take a hands-off approach, those things really come apart. You know, Mother Nature isn't set up to take care of itself in a lot of cases anymore. So being able to manage those things in cooperation with agriculture is one of the best tools we have. And we've been able to see, the bald and golden eagle, they came off the endangered species list. They're still protected. Sage grouse actually came off of the list. It was going to be listed, and it was downgraded. So agriculture is really a good tool when done right. Agriculture is a phenomenal tool for helping wildlife move forward, and that's how I got into it. You know, from an agriculture and an economics perspective of moving forward, was that if your wildlife is healthy, that means your crops and your cows are healthy as well.
Wow.
You know, I was very fortunate to be able to spend some time in Alaska. And the thing that I think about all the time when I think about the environment at large is the impact of the eagle eating the fish, and then the fish droppings going to the soil, which nurtures the trees and the grasses and the bears, and the cycle is so in your face in Alaska. You just can't really miss it.
It is, and I'm an avid sportsman as well, and I've gotten to spend my time in Alaska and love it. Southwest Montana as well. But you can find the same thing in the Sierras of California, and it's amazing.
My dad, we lived in Southwest Montana for 30 years. He was part of the group that got the wolves introduced to Yellowstone.
Okay.
Oh, I think that. Wow.
Yeah.
I actually worked with the federal agencies in that area and was on a cooperative group for weeds and wildlife management that covered Yellowstone National Park in Gallatin County, Montana.
Well, we lived in Gallatin County. It's a small world.
It is.
It is. Well, this has just been fascinating. Tigger, I knew you'd enjoy it.
Oh, this is just right up my alley. I could talk about this all night.
Yes, I know. But we have to get to Hedwig. So,
Okay.
well,
Yes,
Matt,
but I
thank
want to
you.
ask one little question. What can the average homeowner do, Matt, in your opinion, to make our backyards, our farms, more ecologically balanced?
That's easy. You know, we have a small farm here in North Texas, and something we do all the time. You know, we use our ground. We have a garden, but in the garden we mix in, you know, different pollinator species. We grow, you know, utilizing what's around us on our own place. Making sure that our cactuses, prickly pear, stay healthy. We harvest, we replant. So in your own home location, whether it be, you know, a lot in town or a large ranch, you know, being able to start small and look at the small things that you can do. And those smallest things actually anymore, a lot of focus on pollinators. They keep our forages, you know, healthy. They keep our flowers healthy. They provide food, you know, to our next, you know, the next level up when we start getting to our songbirds and our migratory. So plant a little pollinator garden, do your own gardening. My gosh, you know, bring in all the wildlife around.
and don't use a lot of chemicals. That's
No,
my message.
we don't use chemicals on our place. We use animals
We don't either.
to graze the weeds off. The timing of those things is important. Mulching over the top, even if it's something as simple as solarizing your weeds. If you go into the garden, instead of tilling it, you know, you can put plastic over the top, kill the weeds, then it becomes green mulch. So we do not apply chemicals to our place.
We don't either.
That's cool. Well,
So,
I feel like you guys could talk forever.
Yes, we could.
I knew you would love them.
Some of the biggest pollution we see doesn't come from big agricultural operations. It comes from the amount of chemicals that come off, you know, city yards.
Lawns. Yep.
Lawns and golf courses.
I'm all for no lawns, just grow gardens and pollinator bushes and, you know, forget the green lawn.
That's it. Uses water and petroleum product chemicals typically.
Yeah, exactly. So we're on the same page, Matt. I'm in your tribe.
It's always good to meet another.
Hello.
Hetty!
Hi,
Hello,
Hetty.
everyone. Hello.
How are
hello,
you?
Hello.
Hetty, we have a new producer today.
Who's this?
Say hello to Amber.
Hello, Amber.
Hey, Hetty. I just want you to know I love Pomeranians, and this is amazing.
Amber is shot to the top of my list of people.
Yes. Now tell me, are you a big fluffy Pomeranian, or do you have like a little puppy cut going on?
Oh, no, I have my perfect suit.
Okay.
And fronds. My ear fronds go for about 4 inches right now.
Whoa. I love that.
I have
Sound like a classy gal.
Fronds.
Ooh.
I do. I look like an owl. Yes. Mm-hmm. A very, very attractive owl without wings because I don't have wings. Or, to clarify, am I a monkey?
Got
I'm
it.
not a monkey.
That's
I'm
good to
visualizing it.
So, Hetty, we have been talking to a conservationist in forestry and rangelands. And so we wanted to know what your tips are for conservation for Pomeranians.
For conserving the Pomeranian breed or Pomeranians who already exist? I mean, there's so many aspects to this. Or do you mean how Pomeranians can contribute to the ongoing land conservation effort?
Which
one?
Take your pick.
Well, so let me just begin at the beginning. Obviously, Pomeranians are an important contribution to biological diversity due to the fact that we are descended from the Spitzhund, which is a German herding dog. People often think that Pomeranians do not have jobs, that we are, quote, toy dogs. Those people should be killed. The AKC may have categorized us as toy dogs, but the AKC is obviously unaware of our extraordinary talent as organizers of herds. I organize my herd. So it is critically important that we conserve this breed and really everything available in our ongoing commitment to biodiversity. Now, moving on to the idea of conservation of available land and species, it is, of course, crucial that we keep open land, because where else would I run on my paws? I do not like cities. In fact, I do not see a purpose for them, really. And so it is critically important that we maintain, say, 1,000 to 2,000 acres per Pomeranian in order for paw running space.
1,000 to 2,000 acres.
Okay, gotcha.
Per Pomeranian.
Per Pomeranian.
So just in this home, 8,000 acres.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And another way to consider this is really the 250 to 500 acre per paw per Pomeranian rule.
Got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Critically important to recall. So if you think about, say, a Pomeranian rescue, which just rescued 21 Pomeranians from a puppy mill, think of how many acres right there must be put into conservation right now.
Okay.
Really, the state of Texas is gone.
Sounds like it.
Wyoming is mine. I claim it.
It's so interesting because you're so small. You only weigh like 7 pounds. Why you would need all that space?
Do I look to you like an animal who needs to share?
Good point. Excellent point.
Also, I like to run and then have a nap, and I don't like my naps to be disturbed. And I want there to be many other species on the land. It's not just for me. There can be bears and other dogs, sort of, and cats are okay, and horses, I suppose, if we need them, and monkeys, but I am not a monkey. And birds of all types are fine, and orca fine if there's water available. I'm really not needing it just for myself. This is just a measuring device.
Gotcha.
Oh,
I would like to have bears on mine.
Well, Hetty, once again, you have enlivened us and enriched us with your presence and your observations. So
I'm so happy to have.
I know you are. And I know at heart you are a true conservationist.
I am.
Right.
I do want there to be land, open land. It's important. No cities burn them down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, Hetty, take care of yourself.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Amber.
And today in Critter Nutrition, we're going to focus on the horse is a GI tract on 4 legs. Recently, I read an article on a presentation about gastric ulcers in horses given at the Association of Equine Practitioners, that's the AAEP convention held in December 2021 in Nashville. Frank Andrews, department head at Louisiana State University's School of Veterinary Medicine in Baton Rouge, presented his assessments of the role gastric ulcers play in poor performance in horses. Quote, "As far as I'm concerned, the horse is basically a GI tract on 4 legs," Dr. Andrews stated. "They are hindgut fermenters meant to be out on pasture grazing continuously. We've taken them out of that environment," end quote. Dr. Andrews also pointed out that the prevalence of gastric ulcers, both in the non-glandular and glandular mucosa, is very high, from 40% to 93% in performance horses. As many of you know, I'm a bit obsessed with the GI tract of horses. From Biostar's range of probiotics to our range of ulcer support supplements, Biostar is a gut-focused company. So when an esteemed veterinarian like Frank Andrews describes a horse as a GI tract on 4 legs, I couldn't agree more, because the seat of health in horses resides in the GI tract. Dr. Andrews pointed out studies that show that during exercise, horses can experience the equivalent to gastroesophageal reflux. That's heartburn in humans, when acid splashes onto the non-glandular mucosal lining in the upper third portion of the stomach. A study which looked at this reflux in yearlings concluded that omeprazole, as in GastroGuard or UlcerGuard, had no detectable effect on gastroesophageal reflux. Saliva is one of the best buffers of stomach acid. Chewing and swallowing activates saliva production. Alfalfa hay or alfalfa pellets can provide better buffering action than grass hays due to the high calcium content of alfalfa. It can be beneficial to feed some alfalfa hay or alfalfa pellets an hour before exercise. You can also feed a cookie supplement like Biostar's Tummies, which will coat the GI tract and provide stomach acid buffering. Horses that graze continuously throughout the day tend to have better protection against ulcers. Management tip from Dr. Andrews: fat. Dr. Andrews recommends adding oil to feed. He recommends a top-dressed corn oil, which would not be my first choice due to the high omega-6 content and heavy processing of corn oil. The reason for adding oil is that fats may slow the food transit time out of the stomach. I recommend cold-pressed oils such as camelina or flax. There are also benefits to hemp seed oil due to the high GLA content of this oil. GLA is important in the regulation of pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. Another fat to consider is lecithin. Lecithin is a phospholipid that can create a barrier against stomach acid and stabilize the cell membranes of the cells that line the horse's stomach. Management tip from Dr. Andrews: chelated zinc. According to Dr. Andrews, quote, "If you're going to use a grain, use one that has a chelated mineral such as zinc or copper. We've shown that the chelated zinc is better absorbed and has an effect on inhibiting or decreasing gastric ulcer scores in horses," end quote. I couldn't agree more with Dr. Andrews. Chelated minerals have higher bioavailability than non-chelated minerals. So what is a chelated mineral? A chelated mineral is a mineral bound to an organic molecule, such as amino acids. Plants use chelation to bind minerals from the soil and make them more bioavailable to the plant. But not all chelated minerals are the same. Mineral gluconates, such as zinc gluconate, have a 10 to 40% bioavailability, while amino acid chelates, proteinates, and polysaccharide chelates provide a 50 to 70% bioavailability. Differences among chelates. Mineral proteinates and amino acid chelates are very similar, but the labeling definition of chelates is different for humans and horses. In animal nutrition labeling, an amino acid chelate mineral has 2 bonds, and a mineral proteinate has 8 bonds. Two bonds may be weakened and separated by the acid in the stomach. So the more bonds around the mineral, the better the absorption. So when reading labels for your horse, look for protonated minerals because it has more bonds. In human nutrition labeling, an amino acid chelated mineral has 8 bonds, and a mineral protonate has 2 bonds, the exact opposite of animal nutrition labeling. When reading labels for yourself and your family, look for amino acid chelated minerals. As long ago as 1995, researchers began looking at zinc deficiency on gastric ulcer healing in rats. While the study showed that zinc deficiency did not affect the formation of ulcers, it did reduce cell proliferation and delayed ulcer healing. Zinc has long been associated with wound healing. Considering that an ulcer is a type of wound of the mucosa, it is sensible to make sure your horse is getting enough bioavailable zinc. If you are feeding Biostar's Optimum 2.0, Optimum Senior, Optimum JS, Optimum Defense, or Optimum GI, your horse is getting the most bioavailable zinc in the form of protonate. Preventing ulcers and managing ulcer horses and ulcer-sensitive horses takes a multi-pronged approach. Lifestyle, diet, supplements, stress assessment, and meds is needed. Some ways to help prevent and manage gastric ulcers: adding a healthy oil to the feed, giving the horse more grazing pasture time, ensuring zinc levels are not deficient, making sure the horse gets a buffering agent like alfalfa hay or pellets before riding. We cannot underestimate the complex role of the GI tract in the health of our horses. Fortunately, we horse owners have access to a variety of methods and ways to keep the equine gut happy and healthy.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks to our sponsor, Biostar US. You can find them online at biostarus.com.
Get the Horse Radio Network phone app on iOS or Android by searching for Horse Radio Network in the App Store. It's free and easy to use.
For details about today's show, go to healthycrittersradio.com, where you can find links, photos, and more information about our guests.
As always, we love your feedback. Please follow us on Facebook under Healthy Critters Radio.
Be sure to visit all the great shows on Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Love your dog.
Hug your horse.
Feed your chickens.
Clean your litter box.
Dance with your goat.
Slither with your snakes.
Howl at the moon.
Hang with your hamster.
Party with your parrot.
Waddle with your walrus.
Outwit your otter.
Cuddle your cows.
Rap with your raptor.
Go chipping with your chipmunks.
Forgive your fox.
While hedging your hog.
We also recommend that you rack with your raccoon.
Gyrate with your giraffe.
Meditate with a meerkat.
Uber with your orangutan.
Facebook with your flamingo.
Ponder with your panda.
Walk with your Wookiee.
Yawn with your yak.
Twitter with your toucan.
Go raining with your reindeer.
Dropbox your dragon.